I think many of chartered accountants feel that charitable trust is not a remunerative business, means a professional opportunity for chartered accountants. But I differ to that. My 90 percentage of revenue is coming from this field only, and I am very happy with it. મને મને યાદ છે કે ઘણી વખત છે ને મને એકાદ સીએ મને એવી રીતના વાત થઈ હતી ડ્યુરિંગ વન ઓફ ધ સેમિનાર ઓનલી. My screen is already presented, so this is I think admin screen. So if you can put one that my sorry, some I think some issues with my mic is there, but I think I am now audible. I am speaking little loudly also now.
Yes.
So is this volume is fine, I suppose.
Yes, sir.
Okay. James, if you can share that screen for presentation. Meanwhile, share is shared. Let me congratulate team.
Sir, again share your screen. Open the presentation and share your screen, sir.
Is it fine?
Yes, sir, visible.
Yeah, fine.
Sir, can you go to the slideshow ribbon and click on from beginning?
Fine, no?
Yes, sir, visible.
Yeah, fine. So I congratulate Team Anand for successfully organizing a vaccination camp for the members and students of Anand branch. It is a great gesture shown by Anand branch with the help of BN Patel One Charitable Trust at Anand and government support. I hope we keep on doing some such kind of relief work for our members and those who are in need. So coming back to topic, today we will overview. If I give you overview about today's session, we will be going through re-registration of charitable institution. The new registration procedure is prescribed under section 12AB. We will be discussing about forms and documents for same. There is an increase in approval limit under section 1023C. Option to be exercised under section 11(7). Reapproval under section 80G. Statement and certificate of donation received for 80G. There are few amendments for corpus donation and application of income, loan and application of income, and carry forward of deficit oblique loss by charitable institute. So I will try to cover this few of this interesting topic with you all in the next 1.5 hours. Amendment by Finance Act 2020. The Finance Act 2020 has made far-reaching changes, as it was already, we all know that pertaining to registration and exemption of charitable institution. Some of the major changes that all existing registration to be revalidated within 3 months. So at that time, it was the date was given 1st June, which has been now extended, and now it is from 1st of April. So from 1st April 2021 to within 3 months, we have to apply for we have all existing registration has to be revalidated. The Finance Act 2020 has made sweeping changes with regard to the existing registration under various sections. All the existing charitable and religious institutions which are registered, approved under the following section. So all 12A, those who are prior to 1996, 12AA, 1023C, and section 80G. These all are required to apply for revalidation within 3 months from 1st April 21. So this procedure will be, one has to begin this procedure from now, and which has to be concluded at the till date. We have not received any extension for this time limit. Today some circular was there for extension, but it is, these things are not covered in that. Registration so revalidated shall be valid only for 5 years. If we go to little background of this provisions, say the basic 12A registration is the basic registration for any charitable trust for claiming exemption under section 11 and 12. If in other words, one can say that if charitable trust is not registered under section 12A, it will be not possible for trust to claim benefit of section 11 and 12. They will be taxed as an association of person and not association of person trust. Earlier, this registration was perpetual, that is valid till cancelled. So now the amendments are such that nothing in section 12AA will apply with effect from 1st June. Section 12A1 1 AC is inserted, which we will discuss at length in coming slide. And a new section 12AB is inserted. The 12AB is a procedural section for registration of a charitable trust. New scheme of registration. An application for registration is to be made by a trust, including an existing registered trust, in the prescribed form and manner within a specific time. In this, when we say about section of 12A1AC, trust is divided into various categories. There are 6 sub-clauses are there, which we will discuss one by one. But broadly, to make it simplify, I have divided this into 4 categories, A, B, C, and D, which in coming slides we will be discussed, that a trust divided into various categories. The application is to be made to CIT or principal CIT, and CIT has to pass an order in the prescribed form and manner. If registration, CIT has to register or provisionally register as the case may be, and grant a unique registration number to the registered trust. If we go little more back, that CAG audit report 20 of 2013, exemption to charitable trust and institution. So it was observation made in that audit report that the ministry may consider providing suitable database of registered trust institution to AOs to have coordination between approving authorities and AO. You must have experience, you all must have experience that 12A number registered for one district, because earlier CIT exemption was not there. The registration was lying with the respective commissioner of income tax, and the registration number, that sequence of that number or formation of that number was different from CIT office to CIT office. There was no uniformity as far as number is concerned, that or a formation of number is concerned. So it was very difficult for assessing officer to sometime to verify. They have to rely totally on the basis of a hard copy only, and it was not possible for assessing officer to verify it electronically. And similarly, there was one movement also. There was one thinking process was going on to contemplate all India law for regulation of trust. I remember that in 2012-13, when I was part of, I was invited member in our NPO committee of Institute of Chartered Accountant. We had 2 or 3 meetings with various government authorities for because for all India law for registration and regulation of charitable trust. Because out in India, hardly few trusts are. Uh, uh, all India law for regulation of trust. Am I audible proper? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I remember that during 2012-13, when I was a member of that committee, NPO committee, at that time we had a various round of discussion with various government authority for this all India law for regulation of trust. Because at the moment only few states are having a act which is regulating trust. Say for example in Gujarat, Maharashtra, similarly in Madhya Pradesh, in Rajasthan, but it is not there in all states. So mainly all charitable trusts are regulated by Indian Trust Act and the societies managed by Societies Registration Act 1860. But there is no uniformity as far as regulation of trust is concerned. So this were all thinking process was going on as in CAG audit report and under for having a contemplative means to have a uniform all India law for regulation of trust. So in Finance Act 2020, in FM switch, in Finance Minister's speech, in order to simplify the compliance for the new and existing charity institution, I propose to make the process of registration completely electronic, under which a unique registration number shall be issued to all new and existing charity institution. So the main purpose for this insertion of section was to create a proper database or to issue a unique registration number to each and every charitable trust in India. If we think about the rationale of this, that the present process of registration, it was also, I have taken this also from one of even from the finance minister's speech only. The present process of registration needs improvement with the advent of technology and keeping in mind the practical issue of difficulty in obtaining registration. So many times it happened that before actually starting the activities of activities by trust, it was difficult under the earlier system to procure registration under 12A, because many commissioners were asking for an activity report, and in a financial statements, if transactions are not there, they were reluctant in issuing 12A registration. So to remove this all the, and to keep technology to have a one unique uniform registration number, the department as a ministry has thought of giving a UCN. One more important thing, one that the tax department will not make roving inquiries in the affairs of the trust on day-to-day basis, since it wants a non-adversarial regime. Instead, it will revisit the registration every 5 years before expiry of the period of the exemption. Say every time whenever assessment is there for a charitable trust, in the you must have experienced that in the questionnaire issued by department, one common query was that activity report, that what activities are doing and to correlate that with the financial statement, and whether that activities are as per object of trust or as per the definition of charitable purpose prescribed in section 215. So that was the main concern. Many controversies were there after that proviso to 215 were there. There were many controversial assessments happened for other charitable activities. So registration it was a registration to that for 12A was, say, if you, there are various citations were there. I have mentioned that for example in Gujarat for Surat City Gymkhana versus ACIT, it is a 76 ITD 327. It was confirmed by Supreme Court as well in this, that once a trust is registered under 12A, assessing officer cannot go beyond that registration for verifying that whether the trust objects are charitable or not, if unless they find some on the basis of facts, otherwise they have to follow. But that controversy was there. So to remove that or to curtail that controversy, I think this is a welcome step, because every 5 years, if a trust is getting re-registered, so one can presume that at the time of assessment, the nexus between 215 and object clause will not be verified again by assessing officer, but they will be sensitive, means that it will be accepted by AO at that time. It is, I think that should be the logic. So except upon fresh facts coming to light, AO or CIT cannot go beyond, sorry, it is not behind, beyond registration to hold that the institution does not exist for charitable purposes. So I think it should help in future for assessment at least. As I said earlier, that in this 12A1, that AC, when various categories were there, that subclause 6 subclauses are there. So to make it little easier, I have classified them into 4 categories, the 4 main categories, A, B, C, and D. And we will be discussing it rather than going on as per the language used in Act. We have simplified this in a form of A, B, C, D. A means charitable, religious, or other institution registered under existing laws. That is category A. Charitable religious trust whose registration expired under the new provision in 5 years. Category B, charitable religious trust having provisional registration under new provision. That is category C. And all other cases that will fall under category D. Trust, there also I have tried to bifurcate into few, how that that before 1st June 2020, but which has not made an application for registration till the said date, that is from, say, now 1st April 2021. On or after 1st June 2020 means we have to take it as a 1st April 21. Before 1st June 20, and which has already made application before this provision come into existence, but it has not been registered till that date. So all pending applications. So under other cases, one can say that those trusts which are registered prior to this date but has not made an application for registration, those trusts which are coming into existence after 1st April 21, or those which are prior to 1st April 21 and which has made application, but their application is pending. So these are the main 4 categories, and which will be applicable. That category wise we will be discussing in the coming slides. Sorry, I think I came to last slide by mistake. You will come to know that how many slides are there. So yeah, category A. Application is to be made within 3 months from the of April 1st, 21. So before 30th June, application is to be made to Commissioner or Principal Commissioner, and they have to shall pass an order in writing granting approval for 5 years. Order to pass within 3 months respectively, calculated from the end of month in which the application was received. Now, in under category A, what is the point of relief? That once application is made, then Commissioner shall pass an order. There is no option for him to ask for to make any inquiry or to ask for any documents or to verify anything. But once application is made under category A, commissioner or principal commissioner shall pass an order in writing granting approval. So all existing registered trust under 12A or 12AA, what minimum compliance they have to make, that they have to make a proper application within stipulated time period, that is within 3 months from 1st April 21. If that condition is fulfilled, that registration definitely will come within 3 months for approval for 5 years. Commissioner has no power under 12AB. Commissioner has got no power to ask for, to make any inquiry or to ask for any documents. Under category B, application to made at least 6 months prior to the expiry of the registration. Now, if we go back, that what is category B, which trust will fall under category B? Charitable institution whose registration expired under the new provision. So this category B will come into picture only after 5 years, because now we are applying under the procedural section 12AB from now onwards. So this category B will come into play only after 5 years. Clear? So this application has to be made at least 6 months prior to the expiry of registration. Commissioner or principal commissioner shall pass an order in writing granting approval for 5 years after verifying the genuineness of the activities and objects by calling for documents as he may deem fit, effective immediately following the financial year in which such application is made. Order to pass within 6 months respectively, calculated from the end of month in which the application was received. So under this category, commissioner has got power to ask for, to verify the genuineness of the activities and to ask for the documents and detail before passing an order. Category C. Now category C is for new trust. If we go back, what charitable institution having provisional registration under new provision. So category A is those trusts which are already existing registration under 12A, 12AA. Category B will come after 5 years. Category C is those new trusts which are applying now for a provisional registration, and they have to within 6 months from the commencement of activities or 6 months prior to the expiry of provisional registration, whichever is earlier. So these are those trusts. This also will come practically after 3 years, because provisional registration is for 3 years. So category C will also come after 3 years. But here application is to be made within 6 months from the commencement of activities or 6 months prior to expiry of provisional registration, whichever is earlier. So here one thing is important, that now we have to understand the commencement of activities as well. Commissioner or principal commissioner shall pass an order in writing granting approval for 5 years after verifying the genuineness of the activities and object by calling for any document as he may deem fit. It is effective from the first of assessment year for which provisional registration granted. Order is to be passed within 6 months. Now category D is residual category, means any trust which are registered after say 1st June, means 1st April, or those who has never made application earlier, though they were in existence, but they have not made application or were not registered under section 12A. These all trusts will fall under category D, and they have to made application at least 1 month prior to commencement of the previous year relevant to assessment year for which approval is sought. So this can be made anytime, say if a trust is required to claim benefit of 11-12 from a assessment year 23-24. So they have to make 1 month prior to the previous year relevant to the assessment year. So they have to make 1 month before 22-23, financial year 22-23. So application is to be one month prior. Commissioner or principal commissioner shall grant in writing the provisional registration for 3 years and send a copy of such order to the charitable religious trust. Here also commissioner has got no power to ask for any detail or for any information? I think audio related issues are still there. Am I audible properly, or
Yes, sir. Away audible.
is it fine?
Yes, it is
Okay.
fine.
Okay. I think I have removed my mic. So
Hmm.
if you may receive some echo, but I have put my, so let me try. If you are getting more echo, then I have to put again mic on. But is it fine? No, you are not getting any echo now. Hello.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. So category D is the residual category, as we discussed that application is to be made 1 month prior, as we were on that commissioner or principal commissioner shall grant. So here also 12AB is not providing any power to commissioner or principal commissioner to ask for any document. Order has to be passed, but only thing that registration will be given, a provisional registration will be given for 3 years, and before 3 months or before actual commencement of the activities, before 1 month, trust has to apply. That will fall in category C. But in category D, once any new trust or existing unregistered trust wish to apply, will fall under category D, and they will get registration for 3 years, a provisional registration for 3 years. Implication of the above amendment: government will create a national register of all the charitable and religious institutions. Income tax department shall issue an 16-digit unique identification number to all the charitable and religious institutions. I think India, we are very fond of keep on issuing various identification number. It may be PAN, then Aadhaar, but I think this is the longest identification number, 16 digit. And I don't know that whether any other registration number, okay, but this is quite long, 16 digit identification number. The exercise of revalidation of all the charitable institute will enable the government to weed out all the inactive and defunct charitable institution. The renewal registration every 5 years will provide an opportunity to withdraw the exemption without going through the complicated cancellation provision. This is very important that at the time of renewal of registration, say at the moment we are for re-registration of charitable trust. After 5 years, we will be applying for renewal. So at that time, commissioner department will have power to grant registration or to refuse registration. And for refusing registration, that it is different from a cancellation provision. And we all know that cancellation provision is, there are specifically 3 points given under 12AA4 that under which condition registration can be cancelled. So it will be very difficult for commission CIT to establish that these conditions are getting fulfilled. So various trust, so one has to be careful every time at the time of renewal. Now, as in my introduction also was told that I am very much involved in charitable trust, but for any entity to do some work, let it be business activity or a manufacturing, or say for example, this is for doing charity. Now, there must be some sort of ease of doing charity. Now, there is no certainty as far as charitable trusts are concerned for from all legislations. Say under FCRA, now every 5 years renewal is there, and it is like a hanging sword. So those trusts which are depending totally on a foreign fund, their dependency, means they cannot plan for a longer period. Even the donor agency also, now under income tax also, that the exemption registration will be required for due for renewal every 5 years. So for a long term project, say for example our contract is for 7 years. Now under this condition, how any charitable trust can plan for a longer period when their taxability is not certain, when their registration, means their eligibility to receive foreign contribution is not certain. So it is very difficult for charitable trust to plan their activities when this sort of limitations are there, that every 5 years this is quite some procedural things are there, and this is certainly a hanging sword. Because if I share with you the FCRA, for example, when first time registration re-registration was required in year 2016.
नाम राजरानी है ना? 180 ठीक है. पानी कोने के ऊपर खड़ा है, हैंड ओवर यूज किया है.
Hello. Yeah, at that time in year 2006, when at the time of re-registration under FCRA, some 16,000 trusts didn't were unable to register themselves. So 16,000 trusts were reduced. And in 2016, when this act renewal registration was there, so FCRA 2010 was passed in year 2011. At that time, I was part of NPO committee of our institute, and I had an opportunity to visit the Home Ministry, Ministry of Home Affairs at New Delhi. And I asked very simple question to director then, and under secretary there, that because that Ministry of Home Affairs, means a foreigners division, is very modest setting, means having a hardly staff of 50 people, and they are managing pan India, where means more than 32,000 registered trust at that time. So I asked very simple question that up to now this FCRA registration was perpetual, and even annual returns were not getting scrutinized because of your workforce. How will you be, how is it possible for Home Ministry to renew this registration every 5 years? So under secretary very calmly replied to me that we have not to manage 32,000. You will come to know in next 1 month. And immediately next 1 month we come to know that some 14,000 registration were cancelled. So I cannot say that that was a hidden agenda or so, but government, the main thing is that they want to weed out certain things, means they don't want to have under charity, they are very much suspicious about some anti-national activities or some money laundering and all sort of things, or even as far as income tax is concerned, profit making. So one has to be very careful while advising to our clients as far as charitable institutes are concerned, and particularly when now corporate hospitals, means hospitals or with a structure like corporate like structures, or educational institute which are very professionally managed and corporate style structures, but ultimately they are registered either a Section 8 company or a charitable trust. So the provisions of Income Tax Act Section 1112 will equally apply to them also. So we have to be very careful while advising our clients when charitable trusts are there, that we do not attract certain things for which this basic registration get affected. Coming back to re-registration of charitable institute, few issues. Let me, these are kind of posers, we can say that we have existing trust already registered. Category A, all registered trusts have to mandatorily apply if exemption is desired, irrespective of size, period of which registration has been enjoyed, whether charitable or religious. So all kind of trust, whether it is a charitable, religious institute, or say 100-year-old trust, or whatever size, turnover size or anything, each and every trust, even a small village trust which is only managing a government grant in aid school, which with no other income, only government grant received and paid, no other income, that trust is also required to re-register under uh, present scenario. Commissioner of Income Tax, Principal Commissioner has to compulsorily grant registration. There is no discretion to call for documents or information or to make inquiries. Period of exemption from the assessment year from which registration was earlier granted. So for 5 years, but from earlier time. Now, very interesting question come to my mind, that what if application is delayed or if application is not made at all? Say now we have to make application within 3 months, that is from 1st April to 30th June. What will happen if we miss that timeline, means up to 30th June, if we have not done? What can be the implications, whether system will software will accept the application, because there is no power available with the prescribed powers with the CIT or principal CIT for condonation of delay in making application. So the only option which I think is one can make application under other cases, means as a category D, but I am not sure about category A, that whether is it possible to do under category A after 3 months. And the basic means the immediate answer coming to my mind is that it will not come. One has to select under other cases only then. Now, what if application is not made at all? So immediately one thing is coming, that no exemption from assessment year 22-23. That is for sure, that because if you go for application under 12AB, the assessment year is coming as a pre-filled, it is coming 22-23. So from 22-23, if application is not made, then no exemption will be available. But does it make it liable to exit tax under 115 TD? Now, if at all, if it goes to that, it will be a very difficult position for trust, because of exit tax is on accreted income, which means which is always net assets, means assets minus liability of a trust. And in various balance, if you go through balance sheet of any trust, one will find it will be difficult for trust to pay that tax. So, and it is a maximum marginal rate applicable if 115 TD is getting attracted. We will discuss it in the coming slide. That other cases, category D. Here also principal commissioner has to compulsorily grant provisional registration. So if as we discussed in earlier slide, that if application is delayed, means if we miss that 30th June deadline, then we are not sure that whether software will accept the application after 30th June under present category, means category A. Is it possible that we can go under other cases? Obviously it will be available, but only in that case the loss to the society, loss to the trust will be that it will be receiving provisional registration with a validity for 3 years. So under category D, here also compulsory provisional registration is there. There will be no inquiry, and CIT has now that is very interesting, that here new trust is also required to apply as category D. Now whether CIT, without verifying or satisfy himself about the object clause, will grant a provisional registration, but language of 12AB suggests that only, that CIT will not is not required to satisfy himself about the object, but they have to grant provisional registration. And period of exemption from the assessment year immediately following the financial year in which application is made. Now here also question is that can a trust seek registration immediately after it is set up, it has commenced activity, or although formed before many years? So in these 3 different conditions, trust can seek registration immediately after it is set up. Yes, it can go, but it will be having a provisional registration. commence activity. Now, it's a registration and to commence activity, there are two different things. Trust can commence activities after few time, or once they have funds, they can commence their activities. But in 12AB, the procedural section, it is differently said that provisional category D means once trust is set up, registered, they have to, they are eligible to apply under category D. And once the activity is commenced within 6 months, they have to apply for a renewal, means under category B. So this is again there also, if we go, I will give example date wise also, that it will be difficult for some time. But what will be the position for those trusts where litigating before tribunal due to non-grant of registration? Say many trusts whose application for 12A was not approved by commissioner, and the petition is pending before tribunal. So, and so that litigation, if it is a pending litigation, what will be the status of that trust under this present regime? It is not very clear in 12AB, but it will be once a tribunal, as per order of tribunal, otherwise it has to go as per category D only. Category C, trust has been provisionally registered under section 12AB. This is category under subclause 3 of clause AC of section 12A1. Earlier time limit for application. Now this is very tricky, as I said earlier, that earlier of the following, at least 6 months prior to expiry of the period of the provisional registration, or within 6 months of commencement of its activity. Now, I want to make it little clear that how it can create issues by giving you an example. Say, for example, a trust commence an activities on 15th July 21. Trust makes application on 31st December 21. Commissioner CIT grants provisional registration on 31st January, that is within 3 months they grant, so 31st January 22. The registration is granted for 3 years from assessment year 22-23, that is up to assessment year 24-25, that is say up to 31st March 24. The trust is required to apply for final registration on earlier of the following dates, at least 6 months prior to 31st March 24, or 6 months from the commencement of activity, that is 15 January 22. Now, in this case, on 15th January, it is not made clear that if a trust is registered and immediately commence its activity, then what will be the scenario? Because 6 months prior to activities, so that is 15 January. So the provisional registration granted on 31st January 22, whereas expiry of 6 months from commencement of activities is 15th January 2022. So how will the trust fulfill that time limit? Because it is not possible. It is so I have mentioned one citation also, that a person cannot be expected to perform an impossibility, because in this case, because in a new regime, I think in 12AB, a new trust compulsorily has to go for other, means go for provisional registration and then only for a regular registration. So the first application will be always considered for a provisional registration, and then it has to go for a regular registration. But this is, I think, anomalies, means difficulty can come in this manner. But as I said, that a person cannot be expected to perform an impossibility. But once activity is started, trust is required to apply for a permanent registration as well. Illustration 2 also. So now activity. When trust, say I'm elaborating it by way of example, a charitable trust with the object of medical relief obtains registration on 1st December 21. A trust has reimbursed rupees 5,000 as medicine cost to poor, means say help to poor, it did on 31st March 22. There is no reimbursement thereafter. It purchased land on 31st December 21. The hospital is operational from 1st November 23. Now, issue will that whether the activity will be regarded as commenced on 31st December 21, that is purchase of land, date on which when the land was purchased, 31st March 22, when first expense towards object is made, or 1st November 23, when hospital is operational. Now, when we require to calculate 6 months prior to commencement of activity, I think a serious doubt can come for this also, that which date can be considered as a commencement of activity, whether when land is purchased but no other activity is done, when some a small medical help is done, or when a full-fledged hospital is operational. So this is again a tricky and case to case, means a case to case it will depend that, but I my sincere suggestion to that is that one has to take a conservative approach, and on very first instance when one can consider that this is a activity is commenced, means any expenditure or any work is done towards object of trust, one can consider that activity has commenced, and take a conservative approach and go for registration. Again, coming to 115 TD, what I dropped earlier, now we are we try to discuss that whether tax on accredited income under 115 TD is leviable upon not making an application. Two views I want to discuss both. Exit tax leviable upon a trust not making an application. If a trust is not registered under 12A, they are not eligible to claim exemption, and they are considered as a non-charitable as far as income tax is concerned. Registration is deemed to be cancelled. Cancel means surrender, abandon, make void, destroy effectiveness, to bring to nothingness. So one view is that if application is not made, it will be deemed to be cancelled, because cancel means surrender or to bring to nothingness. If application is not made, say for example, in present scenario in category A, if application is not made up to 30th June, so our existing registration under 12A is no more effective. So it will bring to nothingness as far as charitable exemption available to charitable institution is concerned. So does it mean that it is a cancellation is done? Another view, if no application is made on or before due date, registration is not deemed to be cancelled. Cancel essentially means annulment. Cancel has been distinguished from surrendered or expiry. Cancellation does not cover the case of non-renewal. Say, if I give you one basic under the expression under section 12A clause AC, that has, the phrase used is has made an application and not shall make an application. Thus means it is a procedural thing. This is not a compulsory thing. It is my personal opinion. It may differ, but application for registration is not mandatory. Even one will find so many case laws are there that even if a trust is not registered under 12A, but if its activities are charitable, if its purpose objects are charitable and expenses are for the purpose of trust only, then tax cannot be on a gross income. Trust tax is always on surplus. Tax cannot be on a gross receipts. So that sort of citations are available. So many citations are there. And under this present section also, one can make a difference that the word used is has and not make shall. So application for registration is not mandatory. It is my personal opinion, but I strongly believe in that cancel and non-renewal, because the same thing we have successfully applied in case of FCRA also. Sorry for deviating from income tax to FCRA. In FCRA, there is a provision that in case any trust whose registration is cancelled, then that all properties, all income out of that FC assets of that trust will lay with the government. Will means at the present district collector is prescribed authority for that. So prescribed collector can take charge of that asset and can utilize as per the object of trust. So trust will have no power in say. in that we have successfully uh, defend our case that non-renewal, when in 2016 the application for first time renewal was there in for under FCR for charitable trust, and one of the trusts didn't get their renewal for some technical reason. It was not for the some other means for some actual issue. It was for some technical, that non-submission of some report or something like that. So renewal was not done. So we have successfully defined that this doesn't mean that a non-renewal doesn't mean cancellation. Okay, it is altogether different statute, but on same logic, I feel very strongly feel that 115 TD will not apply if any charitable trust has not applied for re-registration under present scenario. But one has to be very careful because chances of litigations are there, and the litigation will be of a quite big amount, and because it is accredited tax, that tax is 115 TD, the tax is in on accredited income, and accredited income means a net asset, so tax will be a huge amount. So to support my, I have put two more points. Cancellation results in tax under 115D, which is a penal provision. And one will find so many citations that a penal statute is to be strictly construed, and if two views are possible, one favorable to citizen is to be ordinarily preferred. It, if different meanings are possible to be given, must be construed liberally in favor of an accused. Hence 115 TD should be interpreted strictly in favor of the trust and against the tax department. Another thing, where objects not confirming, say in 115 TD 3.2, it is specifically explicit provision is there that where objects not conforming to condition of registration are modified, but no application for fresh registration has been made, the registration is deemed to have been cancelled. You all must be knowing that from year 2018, most probably it is 2018, that if a trust is making any alteration in object clause, trust is required to make a fresh application for registration under 12A to commissioner, intimating all the correct changes in object clause. So in 115 TD, it is specifically mentioned explicitly that if this is not fulfilled, then the registration is deemed to have been cancelled. Now, there is no such explicit provision for other cases in 115 TD. So one can safely presume that 115 TD will not apply in cases where application for re-registration is not made. As I said that 6 categories were there. Six categories were there. 4 we have verified in A, B, C, and D. 2 other are there which will fall as a renewal only. But I thought it is necessary for me to discuss that also briefly. That trust modifying objects not conforming to conditions of registration, application to be made for registration within 30 days from the date of adoption or modification of objects, and same procedure as case of renewal. So under same procedure as mentioned in category B, trust whose registration become inoperative due to application of first proviso to section 11.7. Now we will be discussing 11.7 also. Application to be made 6 months prior to commencement of assessment year from which registration sought to be made operative. Same procedure as case of renewal of registration. So in both conditions, renewal of registration, so category B, all procedures will be same as per category B. Now at the time of modifying objects, one has to be careful. The word used is date of adoption or modification of object. So if a resolution is passed, but if any approval from a charity commissioner or anything is pending, but if resolution is passed as per a clause of a trust deed, so application has to be made within 30 days from that. Now let us come to procedural aspects of re-registration of charitable trust. existing rule 17A replaced. It is earlier all procedures were mentioned in 17A. Now department has come out with a notification 26th March 21 prescribing the rules for re-registration. Application for re-registration and new registration in form 10A. So 10A is the prescribed form for applying for re-registration for category A and D. Form to be furnished electronically, verified by person authorized to verify return of income. So no physical submission is required. The form is required to be furnished electronically. No physical form is available. One has to file electronically. Order granting registration to be passed by principal CIT in form 10 AC, and 16-digit alphanumeric unique registration number to be issued. Similarly, application for renewal of provisional registration, making inoperative registration operative, and modification of object. So application for renewal of provisional. So category B, C, and another two, making inoperative. So 11.7 and modification of object. This all has to made application for re-registration in form 10 AB, and principal CIT to call for documents and make inquiries to arrive at satisfaction. Order of approval, rejection, or cancellation to be in form 10 AD. Now, one interesting thing which I came across while going through these rules: registration and URN given in form 10 AC can be cancelled at any point of time if form 10A has not been duly filled in by not providing fully or partly, or by providing false, incorrect information or documents required to be provided under the rules. Opportunity of being heard to be provided. In case of cancellation, registration URN deemed never to have been granted or issued. So now this is very harsh. I don't understand the logic behind this. One has to be very careful while filing a form 10A, because if any of the point of 10A, if it is discovered on a later stage, say after 2 years, that a particular field in form 10A was not correct or was wrongly filled, so CIT has power given under rules to cancel that registration. And interesting thing is that in case of cancellation, it is deemed never to be have been granted. So it will cancel retrospectively. So if after, say, if we are applying for 2022-23 now for a re-registration, and in year 25-26 assessment year, if it is discovered by the authority that a particular field in a form 10A was not correctly filled, or a particular document was not, which was submitted was not correct, so cancellation will come from retrospectively from 22-23 and not from the year when it was discovered. So this is very important. One has to be very careful at the time of filing form 10A and to verify all details before filing, before submitting form 10A. Now, is rules ultra vires the act? Why I'm saying this? Because act has provision for cancellation of registration only under certain circumstances. It is specified in section 12A B 4 and 5 that when a registration can be cancelled, there are stipulated condition mentioned that under certain circumstances only registration can be cancelled. So how rules, I think it is this is the case of rules ultra vires the act. So it will be a point of litigation in future. One has, but in any case, one has to be very careful. And interestingly, this is not there in case of form 10AB, because in 10AB, commissioner is required to make an inquiry or to ask for a documents. So it is this condition, this provision is only there for form 10A and not for form 10AB. We are discussing few points, means a few points of Form 10A, which I feel that we will discussing the forms as well. Relevant section code. Now there are 19 different categories of section code are there. So as in earlier slide, we said that one has to be very careful while filing Form 10A. There are 19 different categories are there, section codes were there. So one has to be careful while choosing correct category. The Form 10A is it's a common form for 12A, 1023C, 35AC and 80G. Nature of activities required to be mentioned: charitable, religious, and religious cum charitable. So they have divided all into three nature of activities: 100% charitable, 100% religious, or religious cum charitable. Type of constitution: trust, society, company, or others. In case of Gujarat and Maharashtra, one has to be careful. Society are also registered under respective trust act. So to make it simplify, if you find any trust or any society whose number is starting with F under Bombay Public Trust Act, means a F oblique some number and then oblique district name, then that is compulsorily, means one has to be precisely verify that this will be definitely a society, which is by default getting registered as a trust also. In Gujarat and Maharashtra under Bombay Public Trust Act, registrar under Societies Registration Act is the same authority, Assistant Charity Commissioner. So by default, all societies are receiving registration under as a trust also. But at the time of selecting constitution, the type of constitution, societies, means to make it simple, those which are having a F series number, they have to compulsorily select, means better to select a society and not trust. Whether established under instrument. Again, I will share my experience in a Goa and in a Union Territory of Daman and Diu. This area was earlier under a Portuguese regime, and all churches were under say under Rome, means under Pope, and they were given so much power. So all as properties and management of, there was a specific rule under Portuguese government that how to manage, and exemption, a specific blanket exemption from tax was given to them for any kind of, not only income tax, from any kind of tax to churches were given. But that all churches were having a no registered document. So I have a personal experience, because we have developed few documents for them, and we at the time of registration and for FCRA also, because that were established without any instrument. So that agreement with the Portuguese government, and when Portuguese government hand over to India, at that time the treaty was made. So on the basis of that treaty, so there may be such sort of many old religious trust, many temple which were not established under instrument, but where they were offered. So in earlier years, with the Assistant Charity Commissioner, only verbally, and it was only in PTR that a trust deed is only available in PTR, because at that time with application only objects were required to be mentioned and no formal document were there for creating trust. So that all will fall under whether established under instrument. So that instrument has to be properly selected. Date of incorporation, creation or registration. Again, I am saying that it will be careful in case of trust oblique society. Say, let me clarify here. In case of trust, the date mentioned on registration certificate issued by Assistant Charity Commissioner may differ from the date mentioned or when the trust is offered by settler mentioned in trust deed. So as per my understanding, date of incorporation of trust will be the date which is appearing in trust deed, and not the date which is appearing in a on the date on which registration was granted to that trust. So that two dates may be different, because trust was created, or settler might have offered that property to trust on a given date, but that was registered on a later date by Assistant Charity Commissioner. So one has to select proper, means a correct date of incorporation or creation. So that creation date in case of trust, one can get from a trust deed. In case of society company will come when a certificate of incorporation is available. So it will be, in case of society, one can safely take that date from a registration certificate, that when the society is under Societies Registration Act, where the assistant charity commissioner is issuing. So that is important. Objects, one has to select, there are options given as per section 215. One has to select whether it's educational or medical relief, or so that way as per section 215 it is to, one has to select. Now very interesting one question is there, whether trust deed contains clause that trust is irrevocable. Many safely say don't select straightway yes. One verify, because majority, all, I think this clause of irrevocable is appearing in trust deed for last 8-10 years only. So any trust which is registered say 10 years back or 15 years back will not have specific clause of irrevocability in on a trust deed. So at while filing form 10A, one can select no, but is it necessary for a trust to contain clause of irrevocable? Say if you read section 11, it starts with subject to provision of section 60 to 63. Now section 60 to 63 speaks about those cases where only when assets are transferred, or when assets can when the transferor is having a right to claim it back. So section 11 is very specifically saying that subject to provision of section 60 to 63. Similarly, in my personal opinion, absence of irrevocability clause does not make trust revocable. If no power retained with settler, trust is irrevocable. Dissolution clause in case of society is also indicative that trust is irrevocable. One is required to be very careful while selecting yes or no. Coming again, that whether trust is it necessary to have a irrevocable that clause in a, say if we go through section 77 of Indian Trust Act 1882, a trust may be extinguished or terminated if its purpose become unlawful. Say there is, so if the object of trust become unlawful, in that condition only, in that case only, trust may be terminated. Similarly, when a public trust is properly and completely constituted, it becomes irrevocable, even though it is voluntarily. Accordingly, there is no provision under the various Public Trust Act, including Bombay Public Trust Act, to legally terminate or dissolve a public charitable trust. So if you go through Bombay Public Trust Act, one will not find any clause. If someone, say many are coming to our office saying that અમે આ trust બંધ કરવા માંગીએ છીએ, so there is no explicit, means express any provision available in Bombay Public Trust Act to close down or to terminate a trust, unless say trust, once trust, the simple logic is that the trust is offered by settler for a stated purpose. So unless and until that purpose has become unlawful or null or void, the trust will become in existence. It will in all cases it is irrevocable only. So section 77 of Indian Trust Act is also supporting that. Even in few case laws, if I say that in a Tara Education and Charitable Trust, it's a in a Mumbai ITA 1247 2013, there also same things has been noted by ITAT. In this in that case, commissioner has refused registration of a charitable trust, stating reason that there is no dissolution clause or trust is not irrevocable, expressly mentioned anywhere in trust deed. So one need not required to worry that whether trust is irrevocable or not, whether it is specifically mentioned. But as I said, that one need to be careful in selecting yes or no, because if there is no express clause in our trust deed regarding irrevocable, and if we select yes, then if in future, if it is discovered that there is no specific clause saying that trust is irrevocable, at that time trust can be in difficulty. Detail of registration on Darpan portal under FCRA or any provision of income tax. These dates are to be given: registration number, date of registration, authority granting registration, date from which registration is effective. So basic, this three information will be there. Darpan has made it has become compulsory for all those institutions which wants to get some government grant to get themselves registered under Darpan portal. This is a portal by Niti Aayog. If a trust is registered under FCRA, it is compulsory for them to mention that registration detail, and our existing 12A registration detail is also required to be mentioned at the in Form 10A. One is required to mention whether any application made in the past rejected, detail of author, founder, settler, trustee, this governing body. One is required in that name, relation means category, UIN, ID means PAN or other, address, mobile number and email. Now, email and mobile number, it has become made compulsory under Form 10A. One has to mention mobile and email. Now, it will be a genuine difficulty for a trustee because time they don't use mobile number or email. So it will be a tricky thing, but avoid using our or our staff mobile number or email in that. Whether return of income filed for last year for which due date of filing return has expired, it is if you start filing Form 10A, this is coming straight way. If it return is filed, it is coming yes. If no, then further detail of income and balance sheet details one is required to be given, the financial detail. Now, this is a screenshot of attachment which are required to be attached, means which are required with the Form 10A. Now, I wish to draw your attention on note C. If any of the documents are available in vernacular language, you are requested to upload translated version of the document, failing which the application would be rejected. Now, in majority cases, our trust registration certificates are in Gujarati only, or in case of Maharashtra, it is in Marathi. Even our trust deeds are in our language, in Gujarati or in Marathi or so. So it will create a genuine hardship to all trustees to get this. Now we are not sure that it is a simple translated copy or a certified translated or what. It is not specified, but we are not sure. We never know that if one fine day they say that no, this is not a certified translation. So, but as per present, it is attachment. No vernacular language attachments are allowed in Form 10A. There, if we wish to upload original in vernacular language, they have mentioned with us specifically that separately click to that it will come that if they will allow to upload it in a vernacular language only also. But if we wish, we can upload a vernacular document also, but it is compulsory for us to attach all this document in compulsorily in English or translate English or Hindi. It is not mentioned that but it should be in either English or Hindi. That I presume that Hindi is allowed or not. This was from last Finance Act 2020, that the timeline for furnished audit report. A trust ought to get accounts audited before the specified date referred in section 44AB and furnish the report audit by that date. Specified date in 44AB is now 1 month prior to due date for filing return. So a trust is required to file audit report, that is Form 10B, 1 month prior to due date of furnishing the return of income. Generally, we all file Form 10B and return together, but one has to be careful for this to follow this time limit. Now, sometime you must have experienced that CPCs, if Form 10B is submitted, even 1 minute means first ITR is submitted and then next minute Form 10B is submitted. Then also CPC sometime don't allow benefit of section 11 and calculate tax on a gross receipt. but then at a few rectification and explanation, it is going through, but still sometimes CPC is doing that. So one has to be careful to avoid that hardship. Amendment in section 11.7. A trust registered existing law. I am reading a existing law. A trust registered under section 12AA would not get exemption under section 10 except agriculture income under section 10.1 or under section 1023C. That is what 11.7 was saying. Now amendment is there that a trust registered under section 12AB also would not be eligible to get exemption under section 10 except income specified in 10.1, 1023C and 1046. They have included 1046 also. So those with a so first proviso to section 11.7, the registration under section 12A shall be inoperative if an approval is obtained under section 1023C or the institution is notified under 1046. Registration shall be inoperative from later of the following: 1st June 2020 or the date on which trust is approved under section 1023C. Still they have not made change to 1st June 2020. It is still under this section. Date mentioned is 1st June 2020. So I'm not sure how to follow from 1st June to 1st April 21, but date mentioned in 11.7 is still that only. Second proviso, the trust whose registration has become inoperative may apply to get its registration again operative under section 12AB. Once re-registration is granted, the approval under section 1023C shall cease to have any effect from the date on which the said registration becomes operative. So one can easily say that dual registration will not be allowed. Means either trust can claim benefit of section 11 or under a respective either side. It is not possible. One has to be careful. If a trust has several educational institutions, it could claim exemption for certain institution under 1023C and under other institution under section 11 in existing law. But post amendment, such option is curtailed. So one cannot claim simultaneous benefit of 1023C or section 11. One has to opt for one. Proviso do not apply to 3AB and 3AE where the exemption is granted without any approval. Means for a educational activity or for medical relief with a limit of within a prescribed limit, if approval is where a specific approval is not needed. In those cases, this proviso will not apply. By virtue of first proviso, registration under section 12AA or 12AB becomes inoperative but is not cancelled. So that 115 TD will not come. Maximum 2 switches possible. Obtain approval under 1023C 46 and make the existing registration under 12AB inoperative. Obtain other option, obtain fresh registration under 12AB thereafter, and the approval under 1023C 46 is to have any effect. So once this option is selected, subsequently trust cannot switch back to 1023C or 46. So that switches is one time 2 switches are possible. Now coming to 80G, as I said that for re-registration for 80G also the same form is there, form 10A. I am not going in detail for that. Because it's a same what is there in a 12A. It is an identical form and identical condition. There also categories wise, it is 4 different categories are there. So that is identical only. So I'm not going in depth for that. But reporting of donation that I am taking now. Now making a re-registration under 12A and 80G. Now same form is there. Now I'm not sure, I have not yet applied, so I'm not sure that if 12AB one application is made for 12A re-registration and a simultaneous application under 80G can be done, most probably it will be system will be allowing that, but I'm not sure, I have not tried that. but there is no express any condition where one cannot do that. So uh, one can do go for, but simultaneous application for 12A re-registration ATG can be done. For regarding amendment regarding ATG benefit to donor, the Finance Act 2020 provide that a donor institution fund has to submit the statement of donation received in Form 10 BD and in manner as prescribed, and benefit of ATG shall be available to donor on the basis of information relating to donation furnished by corresponding institution. This obviously this amendment is a welcome change and shall provide transparency and ease in availing ATG benefit to the SSC. Further, the income tax department can also maintain and track the ATG related transaction at the national level. So all bogus claim, once donation is made to ATG institute in 1 year and then continuously claiming for various years using same PAN and NIM, can be avoided now. So government is tightening the nose. Presently, the approval of under ATG is validity, perpetual validity was there. If you remember earlier, prior to 2014, registration under ATG is required to be renewed every 3 years or 5 years. Means registration was granted for 3 or 5 years only. At that time, Finance Minister mentioned in one of his speech by presenting his budget that this is creating a genuine hardship to all registered trust to apply for renewal of ATG. So at that time they have made it in a perpetual. Now again, total U-turn is made by government, and in Finance Act 2020 provide that all the existing ATG approval need to be revalidated and the application for the same should be submitted within 3 months. So all conditions are same. Now that annual trust furnishing the donor form, and then to issue furnish a donor a certificate in Form BE. So BD is a form to be filled by trust at the end of every year before 31st May. One has all registered trust under ATG. So from next year, 31st May 22, all for a transaction for year 21-22, all registered trust under ATG has to apply, means has to fill that form for which will facilitate all donors to get the benefit of ATG. And trust has to furnish a donor a certificate, Form BE. So it is a Herculean task in a hand of trust to maintain this detail and to upload every year. And I think at the time of receiving donation, trust has to educate the donor to drop PAN compulsorily, unless because PAN will not there, then Form 10, Form B 10 BE will not get generated. So it will be difficult for them to claim in that benefit of ATG at the time of filing their individual return. Consequences for failure to deliver statement certificate: the trust is liable to payment of fees penalty if it fails to deliver a statement within the time prescribed. Furnish a certificate prescribed under ATG 59. The quantum of fees, it is like very much like a 234E, rupees 200 for every day during which the failure continues, and the amount in respect of which the failure referred has occurred. So here fees will quite be more because it can go to the total amount of donation and or per day 200 rupees, whichever is less. Fees to be, so it is this is very much identical to 234E only. Quantum of penalty, there is a prescribed penalty of 10,000 to 1 lakh, and AO may levy penalty. So levy of penalty is discretionary, whereas fees are compulsory. 234G, that fees are compulsory, whereas penalty under 271K is discretionary. So as it is always said, to the satisfaction of AO. Now few issues that in case of in hand of donor, whether deduction to donor available when statement is delayed or not filed at all. Say if a trust doesn't file return, means Form 10BE, Does it make make that sense that donor will not get benefit? We have experienced such things for TDS and even in GST also, that if one person is not paying GST, that credit is difficult. So similarly in TDS also, that if it is not appearing in 26 AS, it is difficult for individual to claim that TDS. So same thing will apply in 80G also. So it will be very difficult task. 1023C also, as I said, that it is a same identical for same form and all other conditions are identical. I want to take a few recent amendments, so I am skipping that. 1023C limit representation has been received to increase this limit of present limit of 1 crore. So now this limit has been increased to 5 crores. So 3AD and 3A. 3AD is for education and A is for medical relief. So one very important thing is that the gross receipt of all institution under trust to be considered and not net amount. Many times we have observed that at the time of consolidation of balance sheet and income expenditure, individual institute means in the case of trust, if 5 educational institutes are there, so in case of consolidated trust balance sheet, surplus or deficit of individual institute is only taken care and not a gross receipts and gross payment. So that consolidation is an individual perception, but at the time of verifying there's a limit of 5 crores or earlier 1 crore, gross receipt has to be considered and not a net amount. There are few changes in for corpus amendments are there in corpus donation. Say this corpus donation is exempt under section 11(1)(d) with effect from assessment year 22-23. Exemption is subject to condition that such donations are invested or deposited in mode specified in section 11(5), maintained specifically for such corpus. So which means that we have to make that connection between our corpus donation and investment. So we have to make earmarking of corpus investment. One has to be in a position to establish that this investment is out of this particular corpus fund. If that establishment is not there, then it will be difficult from assessment year 22-23 to claim that donation as corpus and exempt under section 11(1)(d). Application explanation 4 is there, that application from corpus not to be treated as application of income. It will be treated as application in previous year in which amount is invested or deposited, maintained specifically for such corpus, and the application will be available to the extent it is invested. And one more important point is that the reduction of investment to be reduced from application of income of that year. So if I give you example of this, that if a trust has received a donation, corpus donation of 1 crore rupees, and it has invested only 90 lakh rupees. So application in previous year in which this amount is received corpus 11(1)(d) will be available only to the extent of investment, that is to 90 lakhs and not to 1 crore. So that is fresh investments are needed. I have kept issues of this at the last slide, so it will be we will be discussing that in that. Repayment of loan. Application from loan or borrowing also not to be treated as application of income. It has to be treated as application in previous year in which loan repaid from income of that year to extent of repayment. So now this will be clear if you go through ITR 7. Now in ITR 7, when we write our application of income under 11, means if it's a revenue or capital expenditure, now there one column will come, that source of that utilization. So that source is now important from this year as per explanation 4. If it is not out of income, but if that application is out of loan or borrowing, then that amount of application will not be treated as application of income, but that application only at the time of repayment, loan repaid from the income, in that year only, that will be considered as application. So earlier double deduction was possible, that loan is not income, it's a liability, and expenditure is considered as application of income, and the year of repayment of loan, that is repayment of loan, was considered as a application. So it was, but in any case, if trust was not claiming for carry forward of loss, this provision, if this provision will affect only those trusts which were applying, which were claiming carry forward of loss or deficit. Even now, that is also deficit of earlier financial year is also now not allowed as per amendment. I think I missed that slide in my presentation, but even that carry forward of that only current year expenditure means application out of current year is available and not from a previous year. So if a trust has utilized 105 percentage, then that 5 percentage will not be considered as application, means which can be carry forward in next year. So that will be little questions, means issues which are out of this 3 amendment. I found that investment of corpus, whether it is required to be made immediately or by year end. So if a trust, if say for example, if Swaminarayan temple is receiving a donation, corpus donation regularly, because they have a prescribed fund which can be considered, which they are treating it as a corpus, and donors are also giving as a tithi dan we call, or a kayami bandor. These are the common fund which are there in temples and which are like a corpus fund only, where donor are giving it for a specific purpose only. Say in a Red Cross Society, we have that specific tithi dan, means on a one date that all blood donation, that all expenditure will be made by from that amount. So whether any now investment of corpus has to be earmarked. Now, is it necessary to invest immediately when, as and when corpus donation is received, or at the year end as per total amount? So in my opinion, if at the year end is done, it is fine, but one has to be careful that that earmarking of investment is done properly with a corpus donation. Otherwise, it will be difficult to claim application under 11(1)(d). Would depositing current account or saving account with bank qualify as a investment? Yes, it will. It is allowed as a investment because 11(5) include current account or saving bank account, but in it was like inviting litigation only. So it is advised to invest in fixed deposits or with a fixed interest giving a thing. Now, in case of any donation received in a kind, say for example, ambulance received by a medical trust or a receipt of jewelry by a temple as corpus, when if and a trust is applying a depreciation for, say for example, how to maintain that correlation, means that to earmark of corpus with its investment, because this investment is in ambulance. But I think donation in kind will not make much difference to taxability of trust, because it will be considered as application in year of receipt straightway. What if deficit of earlier year financed by loan and loan now repaid? This is very tricky, means if deficit of earlier years is if a trust is making a continuous deficit, and if a loan is taken to repay that, then so this is very tricky, and I think it will be allowed, because loan in year of repayment, that application will be considered. So that is for from my end. If any queries, I will be glad to try. I will try to resolve that. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, if any queries or anything.
Anybody has query, then can ask.
હેલો બ્રિજેશભાઈ,
Yes, yes, sir.
આપણે 31 માર્ચના એક ટ્રસ્ટનું મર્જર થયું છે,
Hmm.
તો એમને રિન્યુઅલ જ કરાવવાનું થશે કે એને નવા તરીકે એપ્લિકેશન કરવાનું થશે?
ના,
Object
એમને
છે? હા,
મર્જર થયું હશે ને એટલે એ ચેરિટી કમિશનરે મંજૂર કરી દીધું છે
કરી દીધું છે 31 માર્ચને. હા,
31 માર્ચના. એટલે એ તમારે એમાં કોઈ ઓબ્જેક્ટ ક્લોઝમાં ફરક થયો હશે તમારે.
સ્કીમ નવી થઈ ગઈ ને સાહેબ, બે ટ્રસ્ટના ઓબ્જેક્ટમાં.
હા, હા, એટલે એ તમારે ફરીથી એમાં રિન્યુઅલની જેમ 10B 10AB ભરવું પડશે, 10A નહીં ભરાય.
અચ્છા, મારે ઓકે ઓકે, એને એ બી જ કરવું પડશે, એટલે 3
હા,
વર્ષ માટે નો જ
ના,
મળશે.
3 વર્ષ નહીં સાહેબ, એ મળશે તમને 5 વર્ષ, પણ એમાં ઇન્ક્વાયરી થશે અને એમાં સીઆઈટી ને પાવર હશે એપ્લિકેશન રિજેક્ટ કરવાની, કેમ કે તમારે એ કેટેગરી ડી માં નથી જતું. કેટેગરી એ અને ડી છે ને એમાં 10A ભરવાનું, કે જે નવું ટ્રસ્ટ હોય તો.
હા હા હા,
આ તમારે શું થયું છે કે એક બે ટ્રસ્ટ હતા એ ગમે તે એકમાં ભેગું થયું હશે, એ
હા,
કોઈ નવી એન્ટિટી ક્રિએટ નહીં થઈ હોય,
હા,
કોઈ એક ટ્રસ્ટ બીજામાં ભરી ગયું હશે, એમાલ્ગમેટ થયું હશે.
હા.
એટલે એ ટ્રસ્ટના ઓબ્જેક્ટ તમારા બદલાયા હોય એટલે એને તમારે રિન્યુઅલ જે આપણે કરીએ ને, એટલે એ તમારે 10AB ભરવું પડશે. 10A કેટેગરી એ ને બી માટે આવે, then તમારે આ કેટેગરી સી માં આવશે.
એટલે રિન્યુઅલ નહીં થાય, સિમ્પલ રિન્યુઅલ નહીં થાય મારાથી.
સિમ્પલ રી રજિસ્ટ્રેશન નહીં થાય. આપણે રિન્યુઅલ શબ્દ ના વાપરીએ, રી રજિસ્ટ્રેશન
re-registration
શબ્દ
નહીં.
વાપરીએ. તો રી રજિસ્ટ્રેશન નહીં થાય, પણ એનું તમારે રજિસ્ટ્રેશન, કેમ કે તમારો ઓબ્જેક્ટ બદલાયા છે એટલે એ પેલા અધરમાં નહીં જાય.
ઓકે ઓકે.
One more question which I can see from CA Bhargav, that if donor give donation in cash and he don't wish to take benefit of ATG, I think ATG માં 2000 થી વધારે ડોનેશન જો કેશમાં મળશે તો એ ડોનરને in any case he will not get benefit of ATG. So there is no bar for trust to receive any donation in cash. That 2 lakh limit is there, but as far as donation is concerned, that is not there. But if some donor has given and not fulfilled that 2000 limit, then donor in any case will not get benefit. I think my one friend CA Kishore Shah from Bhavnagar might have joined. I'm not sure of that, but if Kishore Bhai is there, CA Kishore Shah, I think he has earlier he has dropped 3 queries with me, and I have tried to address that in my presentation. So if Kishore Bhai is there, whether that is that fine? Hardik, if it is possible to unmute, કે જેને query પૂછવી હોય તો.
સર ચેટ બોક્સ ની અંદર ક્વેરી લખેલી છે દરેકની.
એટલે એ મારે
એવું હોય તો હું રિપીટ કરું.
ના, એકમાં વાંચ્યું મેં, એક પેલું એ વાંચ્યું હતું ડોનેશન વાળું, એટલે
ઉપર છે.
હા. In cases of all established trust, copy of 12A certificate is missing, then in case that would be what would be the remedy? So this will be a definitely big issue for all that old trust, because many trusts, because in my own case we have personally experienced this sort of issue at the time of FC renewal, because there also 12A was required and we were unable to sort out. So any sort of document, say if any assessment order is done, if ATG registration is there, so that can be, if any earlier assessment order is there, I think that is sufficient. And if at all nothing is there, then one option, which a very practical option, is that to go under category D. So the only issue will be that a trust will receive a provisional registration for 3 years instead of 5 years. But if you have 12A number, try to go for under category A only, and because registration will be there if number is there. But for lack of document, The last option available is that to go under category D and to satisfy ourselves with a provisional registration of 3 years. And if a trust is already active, then immediately one can apply for a category A. So that will be a little more procedural thing, but one can do that. I think Kishore bhai, affidavit will not work. You have mentioned that because affidavit is from our part and department will not give any sort of thing in writing. That I have personally experienced, that department is not issuing any sort of, if you get any sort of Xerox or anything, copy, photocopy or anything, and then I think commissioner is obliging us by uh, issuing a fresh on a letterhead that this trust is registered by so and so date, if on the basis of assessment order. Because we personally, we got that sort of letter from commissioner at on in various cases where we have a reference of 12A on one of the assessment order, when we have a ATG, then at that time commissioner has obliged us by writing that letter, but that affidavit will not work. One question is that activity report, what should we have to be attached? Only description on letterhead. Say it's a 3 years activity report is required. So in my as per my opinion, I will suggest you that try to get activities to narrate which matches your object clause, and try to get some testimonials, like if some joint program with any authority, government authority or any other trust is done, then try to get that document a part of activity report and few pictures supporting our activity as a part of report. That will help. If any order is pending before department for 12AA, then in that case that application will be diverted under 12 as per 12AB. No fresh application is required in form 10A. It was deemed to be applied under a new regime. So no fresh 10A is required. That pending application, but in my knowledge, department has cleared majority 99% of pending application before 31st March. You might not have received any notice of hearing or order, but verify that because 99% application commission, all CIT exemption office has cleared before 31st March. They have not kept a majority applications has been cleared before 31st March. So verify that. હિરલ પ્લીઝ હેલ્પ મી જો હું કોઈ મિસ કરતો હોઉં તો કોઈ ક્વેરી, કારણ કે
હા
મારા
સર,
screen-
ઉપર 3 થી 4 ક્વેરી છે, 3 જેવી ક્વેરી છે જે મિસ થઈ છે
Okay.
ઉપર ચેટ બોક્સમાં.
હા, હું એ હવે તો મારી ફરિયાદ આવી રહી છે કે ભાઈ વોઇસ નથી. Separate form has to be uploaded for 12A and ATG. Definitely separate form is required. As I during discussion I mentioned that I am not sure that simultaneously it will be allowed to apply, but there is nothing mentioned in the provision which restrict us to apply simultaneously. So all existing 12AA and ATG one has to apply individually only. Donell has પૂછ્યું છે. Donell has asked you that what is the difference for Donell. Okay, it is not one should use clause. Clause 1 of clause AC means subclause 1 of clause AC of subsection 1 and clause 6. Clause 1 માં કયા જશે કે which are existing registered trust under old regime, જે 12A માં registered હશે એ, અને 6 માં કયા જશે જે આપણે category D discuss કરી. Those we have discussed under category D, જે residual, એટલે those trust which are if they are registered trust means trust were in existence, but registration under 12A was not there, or if their application is pending, or they have not made application for registration. આ ત્રણેય કેસમાં એ બધા જ 6 માં જશે. એટલે જે આપણે કેટેગરી ડી વિચારી, જે રેસિડ્યુઅલ સેક્શન વિચાર આપણે જે in my presentation, those under category D will be covering subclause 6, and subclause 1 will be covering category A, means those which are registered under 12, those which are applying for re-registration, they all will fall under category 1, sorry, category A, so subclause 1. Yeah, if any trust is applied for say registration under 12A or 1023C and they got a registration before 31st March 21, definitely they have to apply, make a fresh application in form 10A within 3 months from 1st April, because they will fall under the subclause category A, means subclause 1 of 1023, sorry, 11, that new inserted section. So even if that registration is only 10 days or say 1 month old, but we have to apply for a re-registration. So as I said, that department has cleared all pending application before 31st March. So all that application which have been cleared before 31st March, and if it is approved, registration was granted, that all we are required to apply fresh for re-registration. એટલે આપણા માટે એક બીજી ઇન્વોઇસ બનવાનો સ્કોપ થઈ ગયો. I think that query of Kishore Bhai is also clear, that re-registration is compulsory even if 12A registration received in last week of March 21.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nikit Desai has it's under attachment point 1, instrument creating trust and document evidencing creation of trust. Now, what is the difference? That say those trusts which are created without an instrument, means where trust deed is not there. So there point 2 will come into picture, that document which will evidence the creation of trust. And instrument creating trust will come trust deed or a memorandum and rules and regulation, that will come in point A, point 1. So these two things are different. Those trust or those society which are created by a deed, they have to attach under attachment point 1, and those which are not created, means those, as I said, that old trust where a trust deed is not there. So and that one can attach a copy of PTR obtained from assistant means charity commissioner office, and it can be attached in point 2. Application under say category A cannot be cancelled. It will be, commissioner has no power to reject that application. They have to, CIT has to apply, accept and to issue registration number. Yes, separate form is required for 12AA and 80G. So I think I have covered. If anything is missing, please let me know, Hiral. Very કશું રહી જતું હોય તો.
ના સર,
Yeah, yeah.
સોલ્વ
Thank
થઈ ગઈ બધી જ ક્વેરી.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. On behalf of Anand, Bhuj and Gandhidham, I thank to our today's learned faculty, C.A. Brijesh Shah sir, for his excellent presentation, and he enlightened us various provisions related to charitable institution and solved our all the queries. So heads off to you, sir. I would like to thank all the management committee members and staff of Anand, Bhuj and Gandhidham branch. I thank to all the participants for overwhelming response. Thank you all. Thank you all.